And I'm with one of my favourite people ever, Sue Pollard. How are you?
Oh, darling, how lovely you to say. I'm absolutely well. I'm really enjoying myself. I tell you what, it's very, very tough workout, this specific thing I'm doing at the moment, which you'll probably no doubt ask me about, so I'm preempting it. But I mean, this particular show I'm doing, oh, it's fantastic, babe. But God, I don't have to go to the gym. I don't have to do anything because all the muscles in your body from top to toe, they're used nightly and sometimes twice daily. So it's fantastic. And it's only an hour and a half long, no interval. So you've really got to focus. God.
Now, it's called Menopause, the musical. It's not Mary Poppins, is it?
You must be joking, Dave. I mean, the only thing that's popping is our blood and our blood cells and everything else and our sweat glands, because it's all about, obviously, as it just says in the title. And the basic thing is, the basic premise, it's 4 women, quite stereotypical. The lady that wrote it, Jeannie, did this on purpose so she could take it all around the world, and each person that came to the show, the audience member, would probably identify with one or all of the characters. One's called the Earth Mother, who is a latter-day hippie. One is a housewife, which I play. One is the head of a real big corporate, if you like, industrial conglomerate. And one is a soap star who, unfortunately, is really starting to sort of feel the first flush, if you like, not the first flush of youth, the first flush of what she's entering. And the thing is, to make it matters worse for her, they put her character into a coma. So she's likely to be killed off just so that somebody new can take a place. So if you get my drift, 4 of these ladies are all different, but they're all going through the same thing.
I found it an education. I learnt things tonight that I never knew existed.
I know exactly what you mean. The thing is, Alex, it's I love that. I've got those night sweats, sister. Oh, it's the campus thing. But isn't it funny though? I love it because I look out sometimes and you can sort of catch some of the guys' eyes in the audience, and they're so sweet, you know, that half of them are thinking, oh God, I've got this to come. And the other half are thinking, that's why my wife's been an old bag to me for the last 6 years, you know. But it's so nice because they come along, obviously, and they want to go away feeling that A, they've had a good night, but B, they probably actually have had an education as well. So like you just said, you know, you've learned things you never knew. And a lot of guys, I think, unfortunately, they're not sympathetic enough to the situation. And I think when they come and see this, they might actually go out thinking, oh, do you know what? I can understand what my wife's going through now, so I'm going to try and be a little bit more, you know, sort of kinder, if you like, and don't spend all night in the spare room.
This menopause thing, does it start like late 30s and end in the 70s? What is the period that it actually happens?
It goes through 3 stages, actually. It's a pre-menopause, where you start feeling a little bit dodgy, but you don't know why. Then you've got the menopause itself, which means you're losing the estrogen that you're born with. But then, at a certain age, like maybe probably about 47, then unfortunately that starts to slow down because you don't produce as many eggs. It's like in the gynecological world. So therefore, women be careful just in case, because you could still get pregnant.
Well, I think I'm in stage 3. Oh. I think so. Now, you're one of my favourite people to talk to, A, because you're always entertaining and funny, but you're one of the first people I ever met in show business, and you were always so nice and generous, and you are the epitome of what it is to be showbiz. You love it, don't you?
Oh, very much so, Alex. I have to say, it's not just a job for me. I mean, obviously, equally, I know it's a job because I get paid for a job, like so many of us at the end of it. But really, no, it's just a whole way of life. It's a whole vocation, really. And I think it really does. When they say showbiz in the blood, I'm sure it is. It's certainly in mine. It's in my veins. I mean, you can see my veins popping out almost. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's just that I think to actually want to do well and to be able to learn your craft, you've actually got to be devoted and dedicated to it. So, and I've been very fortunate as well, Alex. I mean, I've met, you know, equally great guys like yourself that always give you airtime. They're all always happy to say, come along and let's publicise what you're doing. And I guess it means that we kind of all need each other within this business, don't we? So it's really nice, and you make good mates. It's lovely.
It is terrific. And what I love about you very much is the fact that some people might not think you're a great actress. Some people might not think anything about you. But what they would notice on this is what a great singer you are. And I think people forget that about you, because really we always think Peggy in acting and we don't necessarily think Sue the singer. But that really stood out today as something that you're fabulous at. Congratulations on that.
Oh, thank you, Alex. The thing is, I've always started really as a musical performer, probably from going way back to school in the infants, you know, when they put you in the school choir. And from then on, I was really encouraged, you know, by a lot of musical people. And they were very, very encouraging and said, look, well, why don't you take a singing teacher, etc. So, but then, of course, I got my big break, if you like, for want of a better expression, in a sitcom. So, if you like, that the singing kind of you sort of fades away slightly. So that was one of the reasons I wanted to take this part, because equally, it gives everyone a chance to sort of do lots of different numbers. But also, there are a great deal of harmonising in this show, Alex. When you're not doing a solo, you're doing harmonies with, you know, backing with everybody else. So it's great for that sort of discipline to actually be able to keep on to your line, if you like. And it's been a great discipline for me and a good challenge. And I tell you what, it's made me realise again now that I'm taking my one-woman show out definitely next spring. You'll be definitely invited, babe. And I promise you that you'll get the first interview.
I'd love that. I tell you why, because you're so memorable. And now that's partly down to the way you dress, isn't it?
I guess it probably is. But you know what? I like the word bizarre. I've always loved what I call the bizarre. Maybe nothing goes with anything, but in a funny sort of a way, it does. It kind of, I mean, I might have a pair of shoes and a hat that bears no resemblance to the shoe, but so what? You know, it's just another, if you like, it's just another costume. It's yet another kind of creation for yourself. And I just think, personally, I think it's just nice to have imagination. You mix and match. In fact, my new best friend is now Giles Deacon, who's the designer of the year, which is great, because he stopped me in the street once and said, can I just have a photograph of what you're wearing? I said, no, it's copyright, don't you dare. You know, you know what I'm saying? But I mean, it's very nice to be, I think, for people like that, I think they get their ideas. Actually, even couturiers get their ideas from off the street. They always do, Alex. I mean, how often have we walked down the street and thought, God, I love those guys' socks, or I like that waistcoat, or whatever. So I just think it's nice to express yourself in whichever way suits you.
Well, I think it's tremendous. You put your outfit together for 12 quid from Asda George. They'll charge 400 quid for it.
Absolutely. But it's such, I mean, I'm not being funny. How many people out there, and I think it's fantastic. And good old George, actually, himself. I mean, they have fabulous suits now for something like maybe like £25, £30. And why should you always have to pay 300? It does, and if you tear it, or some unfortunate person, you know, puts a cigarette through it, your trousers, it's not the end of the world. But of course, that's going soon, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It's no good for the voice. It's just no good for work.
I can't imagine you're the kind of performer, though, that spends all day doing scales and drinking Avion.
Absolutely not. No, totally. I do my scales, certainly, probably about an hour before the show, because that is when you have to get ready for, you know, work time, as I call it. And I certainly would, obviously when I'm working, I have nothing to drink whatsoever apart from tea. And then afterwards, I play hard, you work hard, and then you think, oh, I think I'll have a Chardonnay. Maybe I'll just have 2 or 3. And then it's, you know, and then fine. And then you think to yourself, great, I've completed the day today, and then I can go to bed, and then, you know, you do the usual, and then you wake up and you do the same thing again, don't you, like everybody else, I guess.
Presumably there's no greater thrill than standing centre stage with that pin focus light on you, singing one of those big numbers and having an audience just looking at you in awe. That's really nice, isn't it?
I think it's actually the greatest thing that you could really hope for, simply because you've worked for that. Obviously, like anybody in any profession, they have to work, and they don't necessarily get the accolade that we get. I mean, a lot of people are not going to go to Sainsbury's and say to the man at Warburton's, oh, you know that loaf I had, mate? It were fantastic, Bill. They're not going to do that, are they? So I'm fortunate to be in a profession where you can rehearse and rehearse and rehearse, but hopefully what you have rehearsed comes across to the footlights, to the paying public, and they think, oh, I've been royally entertained and I've got value for money. And to me, that's what it's really all about.
I think I've known you more than 10 years now, and in that time you never change. You always give your audience time, and you'll always speak to people. Not many people do that. I presume that's why you're still here today, because you actually love your audience and they love you.
Well, I would like to think that that's certainly in the equation. I think if you give a persona certainly on TV or theatre or whatever you're doing, people are disappointed if they don't get that in real life. Actually, I've seen so many people have said, oh, it's so nice that you're able to talk to us and that, because I'm not mentioning any names, but they might say, well, I saw so-and-so and oh dear, that was a bit disappointing. They didn't really want to know. So I think if you put yourself out there and up there, whatever you're doing, it's only right and proper to be able to speak to the people that are paying your wages.
There's nothing more heartbreaking, though, than meeting your hero and them being nasty or mean and not wanting to talk to you. And that does happen, doesn't it?
I'm afraid, sad to say, that it really does. Still, I mean, a friend of mine, it was really disappointing, actually. He'd been a fan of this particular lady, shall we say, let's put it this way, for about 40 years. And he went to see her at the National Theatre. And he waited patiently, and it was such a shame. She took ages, I guess, taking the makeup off and putting all the glam on. There's nothing wrong with that. How fabulous. Obviously, by the very nature of what I'm saying, she's probably an old, fabulous star of stage, screen and, radio. He said, excuse me, can I have your autocopy? Oh, no, darling, I'm far too busy. My car's here. And that was it. And you know what he said to me? He said, that's it. Never ever going to watch that lady again. It was a lady. So it just shows you, I don't think you can afford to be, you can't afford to sort of, shall we say, be dismissive. I think that's the word.
Well, congratulations on this show. Menopause the Musical is on here. It's doing big business and people are loving it. I haven't been surrounded by so many middle-aged women since I worked at BBC Local Radio. So that...
Oh, I hope the local radio ladies aren't listening to this, Alex.
And thank you for being you, and thank you for never changing, and thank you for being showbiz, because you're everything I love about this business, and there aren't many left, are there?
Oh, bless you, thank you. Just think we might still be the only two in about another, 25 years. Anyway, thank you for your time, babe. I've really enjoyed it.
I'm going to play that song again now.
We're starting together.
I can't resist.
Fantastic. That'll be another tuppence hit me in the bank, babe. Thank you.
We're back here in Star Dressing Room number 1 at the Theatre Royal in Nottingham, talking to a lady who is, well, delicious. Sue Pollard, how are you?
I'm absolutely brilliant, darling. It's lovely to see you again for a start, and it's nice to be able to be talking to all your lovely listeners. And, of course, we've been on the road now. I think it must be about the end of January, and people say, what are you in at the moment? And I'm proud and happy to say I'm in this fantastic musical called Shout, and it's all about a celebration of 60s female songs, like your Dusty Springfield, I Only Want to Be With You, Pet Clark, Subway. And also it's actually celebrating a decade between 1960 and 1970, and it takes place in a hairdressing salon, right, in Peckham, in London. And I play the part of this lady called Aunt Yvonne, right? And Claire, lovely Claire Sweeney, she plays my niece, Ruby. She's decided to come down to London to try her luck. And on the way, she meets 2 girls on the train who are also equally trying to try their luck. So in a way, the whole decade sort of traces their progress, and it actually ends up, do they really realise their ambitions? And all these songs are intertwined within the story. So that's the basic premise, in case anyone's never heard of it, because of course they haven't, because it's a totally new thing.
You must find this peculiar, because you weren't born till the late 70s. And how is it singing all those 60s songs then?
I really, really had to research from the archives upwards. She says. In actual fact, though, Alex, it was a campus thing. I was really, really thrilled, actually, because it was a totally fabulous era, if you were there originally to be a part of, because it captured the excitement, and we like to think that this show does. It was a real fantastic revolution, if you like, in terms of life in general. Whole lifestyles were improved. The fashion, as we know, were fantastic. Anyway, I sort of appeared to be in a consultancy role, i.e. dialogue. And I said, darling, you can't say things like wicked and cool. I said, it's got to be, dig it and groovy and fab. And because I remember every single, aspect of the 60s. So in a way, and of course I had no trouble learning the songs, darling, because they came straight into my head.
What is amazing about you is those people who come in for the first time and don't realise how good you are at singing. I always say this on the show, it's a real skill of yours, and I think people are always pleasantly surprised, and they come out going, God, she's great.
Oh, bless you. I think a lot of people are still surprised that you have got any kind of voice at all, simply because if you become known for, say, like appearances in sitcoms, where in actual fact it's probably mostly dialogue and you don't really have to do any singing at all, then I suppose it's understandable that people are still surprised when you can belt something out. But you see, the greatest thing was, I got my break in a sitcom, and Elaine Page got her break in Evita. But it was fantastic because we used to see each other at the same auditions. Now, we were both physically poles apart, you can imagine. But I think your agent sent you for everything, just to see, if you can get in any work, and hence his commission. So it's still nice to be able to think that some people are still coming to see you and think, oh, I didn't realise she sang this and she sang that. But you see, Claire's had the similar sort of thing. A lot of people know her from Brookside, so they don't necessarily understand or know quite that she's been singing since she was about 6 as well. So it's nice that you can still pleasantly surprise people.
Let's talk about you, the fashion icon. I'm a fashion moron. You're a fashion icon. Let's describe what this is today. We've got things on your necklace. What's that then?
These are wonderful plastic kind of little... This is a whistle. Right, that's made of plastic, so that's fantastic. There's also a tennis ball in a book with a pen on it. These are all 30 years old. You don't expect a whistling necklace, do you?
And you don't expect a dog collar either, do you, really?
Actually, that's very true. I thought to myself, hey, this is fantastic. There was a fabulous shop in Manchester, because we'd been everywhere with this tour. And I went to this fantastic place, and it's sort of like a S&M shop. I thought, I've got to have a bit of that, Anyway.
Marks and Spencer.
Yeah, I was going to say,
it's the reverse, isn't it?
Anyway, it's a campus thing, so I thought, I've got to have this. So I've got a matching wrist dog collar, loads and loads of... loads and loads of like sparkly jewellery. Well, you know what my bling's like? I don't want expensive bling because I leave them everywhere. And I've got a tabard on with got great big gaps at the side. Then I've got a wonderful pair of leggings that are sort of almost like these were given to me because they were made by 2 students of fashion, London School of Fashion. And I said, oh, they're sending me in the post. These wonderful kids that they appreciate people with imagination, I think. And they think equally they'll get their gear worn, which is fantastic. So I'm more than happy to be, I'll be a designer's dream.
What happens, though, when you leave this theatre in Nottingham? You are Mrs. Nottingham. Everybody knows you. Is it difficult to get anywhere? I mean, can you go to Greg's the Baker's for some cobs?
Oh, yeah, I can still go. But they're great, because sometimes they'll go, hey up, Sue, how you doing? All right. And I'll say, I'm fine, thanks, which is fantastic. I enjoy all that. And then you might get some of the others and they might go, it is you, what are you doing here? And then you think to yourself, oh, we've obviously had great pre-publicity. They haven't got a clue what I'm doing here. It's like, you get these taxi drivers and you might be in a panto and you might be there for, say, 6 or 7 weeks. And it's like your last Wednesday of the run. And it'll be, what have you been doing? I said, I've only been doing, like Jack and the Beanstalk for 7 weeks, darling. But sometimes people don't expect to see you walking in the street, I mean, I've seen people that I've seen on TV or know from where they are, and I go, oh, it's Trevor McDonald. Oh, he's marvellous. And I still get excited when I see people that I know, you know what I mean? It's fabulous.
I'll tell you why I worry about you, this touring continually, which you seem to have done all your career. Isn't it lonely in those premier lodges? I don't do it very often, but when I have to stay in them, I find it incredibly tragic and just see myself as a mini Alan Partridge.
I can understand exactly what you mean. I'm more than happy to do a premier lodge. I'm not one of these, I paint my sweet green with, purple blobs. But mostly, I've been fortunate enough to stay in some very, very nice establishments. Sometimes I stay with mates, like I'm staying with my friend Steve this week, Bookend. I don't ask me why I call him Bookend, but it's just a bit of a camp thing. And then, of course, in Brighton, I've got a flat. But if I hadn't have got a flat, I could have commuted. But on a regular basis, daily, I think an hour and a half each way can sometimes be a bit too much, Alex. So you like to be above the shop. But I've been very, very fortunate, and we've had some great, great hotels, lovely flats, great digs. People, it's surprising how many people on the digs list, that's what they call it, each theatre, are more than happy to open up their homes for you. And I must say, I think they're unsung heroes. They don't get mentioned enough. So to all those lovely people that offer us accommodation, we are so, so grateful. And thank you very much from all of us and all the cast and the band.
You mentioned earlier you're now in Shout, which is touring the country. They're talking about it going to the West End. Are you happy to be in this as long as they want you?
Do you know what, Alex? I would say there's no reason why I should say no, to be honest. Obviously, if something other fabulous came up and it was a fantastic challenge, then I suppose you'd have to think about it. But because all these parts in this show, they're so nice, they're so suited to each person. We all get to have fabulous songs. If we're not singing a solo, we're obviously doing, backing singing. And it's all live, by the way. It's a shame I've got to say that, Alex, because so many people think you mime. So we don't mime one single note, and the band are absolutely live as well. So you're seeing absolute spot-on stuff. And I'm more than happy to do this because I think it's a great, great show. I have a lot of enjoyment doing it. And my dear, you should see the people standing up every single night because we're doing mega mix. And we absolutely actively encourage people to come and stand up. And if they want to dress in 60s gear, that is totally acceptable. It's all marvellous thing. You come here for a party and then you go home happy.
Absolutely. The last time I saw you, you were in The Menopause, the musical. How does it feel now going through the menopause?
Well, I must say, at first I thought, it can't be happening to me. And I knew something was up because I felt a bit odder than normal. And one of the things that happened, I thought, what am I doing putting my handbag in the oven? Because you do your mind plays tricks and you go a bit odd. And it's all a bit, and these terrible things and then you think to yourself, I used to love certain foods, and then you'd go off them for whatever reason. And apparently, it's all to do with your metabolic cycle and the way it's all changing. So, but girls who are going through it or yet to go through it, hang on in there. You do come through the other side.
I was talking about the show, not personally.
Oh, sorry. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter anyway, does it? You see, I like to think I'm a role model for the older girl. She can still hack it. Yeah.
Everybody says to me about you, because I've known you more than 10 years now, you were one of the first that I ever did, and are still doing, which is nice, isn't it? And they say, is she really like that? And where does she get her energy from? Answer both of those questions.
I suppose it's a terminology that I found from somebody else, and I thought that was it was the essence of a person's being. You're a life embracer. You see, even if I've got problems, or like we all have, haven't we? I mean, luckily, I hardly have any problem in my life at all. But if I do, I think it's always like what my dad said. Oh, just get on with it. You could come through the other side. It's how you handle it, how you let it affect you. And I just think of all my pluses. And I tell you what, darling, I've got so many pluses to be grateful for. And so many people haven't. And I so know that I'm lucky. I'm doing something that I fabulously enjoy on a regular basis. I just look for all the pluses. And there are plenty.
I think it is your optimism and your love for it that keeps you here today.
Well, it's very nice of you to say that, Alex, because I do think that is a plus. And I think actually what you just described, it's essential to have qualities like that because, you've got to be able to enjoy what you're doing because you've got to put that across to somebody else. And not only that, darling, you're not just doing it once a week, you're doing it 8 times. And sometimes for months on end. So it can't become a daily grind. Exactly what you said. If you choose wisely and you choose exactly, if you can, if you're in a position to choose and indeed are able to get offered a choice, that is your first bonus. Then if you choose something that you think is obviously popular and is going to appeal to the public, and then it's up to you to give your very, very best every time. It's not just about enjoyment, it's about extreme discipline, really, and stamina. And then, but you learn how to build that up. And you have to remember that you have to have a respect for the public. They come along, they pay their money, it's hard earned, especially these days. And it's up to you to send them out, whatever you're doing, going, oh, I got value for money, and my God, I enjoyed myself. And that's my criteria. Really.
Well, I love you very much. Thank you for being you, and thank you for talking to me again. It's always a pleasure.
Oh, it's a real pleasure. Now, come on, take me for a pint.
Loving the dog collar, by the way. Brilliant. Thank you very much.